Hi all, I am Jeevan Rag. I'm a principal industry architect for healthcare here at Snowflake. That simply means I bring in a considerable number of years of experience working for healthcare customers, specifically around data, analytics, and AI. Contact center, we truly believe, is one of those use cases that are being disrupted by AI, and simply because that is where experiences are made, right? And with the mounting pressure that everyone in this industry is facing to up the game, and to deliver that same experience your member or customer gets, whether they reach a telecom or financial contact center, in their healthcare contact centers, the need to modernize is very, very strong and imperative right now. Okay, with that said, getting to the crux of today's discussion, what we attempted from Snowflake was to lay out the data strategy which has to be thought through when we start looking at pair contact center to be transformed with AI. And as we look at the data strategy, which I will go into, also look at what are the best fit AI and ML infusion possibilities into that workflow, right? How can we elevate your contact centers? Specifically in this narrative, we will look at it from a pair lens. And the persona that we'll talk more about is the member persona. Of course, you may have other personas like a broker or employer or provider reaching your contact center, but we'll hone in more from a member persona. So on the screen, you're seeing a bunch of capabilities laid out from the data standpoint as well as from the AI standpoint. But many a times the driving question when we bring up a topic of this nature is, what does Snowflake have to do with it, right? We already have invested in a contact center software. We are already having a licensed party who is specialized in contact center. What role can Snowflake play as a data platform to modernize your contact center, right? And it's a valid question. The answer lies in the fact that experiences are built when you combine the entire spectrum of the data about the member, right? You really can deliver some of the experience we'll talk about only when you have the right data strategy, which taps into every aspects of the data you hold within the enterprise, and then position that with very specific experience focused capabilities, right? Powered by AI. As we look at the narrative from that lens, on the screen, I am trying to call out specific experiences which are better honed when played through an enterprise AI equipped data platform like Snowflake, right? Before we get into the attractive AI layer on the top, let me briefly narrate what are the three brackets of data that you should be watching out for, right? When you think of modernizing your contact center. The bottommost one we see out here, referred to as knowledge store for contact center. So think of it like all the documentation, all the health documents, manuals, benefit documents, contract documents, sometimes the notes that your contact center agents are keeping. So it is that massive gamut of knowledge that is spread across the documents of the enterprise. Keep in mind, this is not just the documents which are owned by contact center as a business function. This comes from the broader enterprise as well, right? It may be partially owned by your provider ops, your claim ops, your benefit team. It ideally has to be a collation of that entire knowledge spectrum where the modality of data is documents enforced as a data topic into your data product. So that's the first one. And we'll see why it is important, right, to harness that data. The second one out here is what is referred on the screen as contact center interactions. So think of it like the assimilation of the data which reflects what happened at your contact center, right? What conversations have transpired, right? What is happening when the member is engaging with the contact center agent at that contact center. So the modality of data could be different. If you think of it from a call center standpoint, definitely the modality is audio, right? When the conversation is going on. On top of that, what you see on the screen, don't get hung up on the dialect out there. You may not be calling it as member 360 or provider 360 in your specific environment, but this is your already curated structured data sets, right? Which should exist in a classic pair or provider, whichever industry you are in. So if you play it from a pair lens, this is your maybe your dimensional model, which is perceiving data from the perspective of a member, where you have member enrollment, PCP association, claims, grievances, whatnot, right? All that information about the member, which tells a lot of things about the member, right? What are his active claims? What are his active grievances? What is his demographics? What is his plan? And all that information is already nurtured in your data, right? As your structured data sets. So these are the three building blocks which we will hone in on as we talk about modernizing. On top of this, when we start delivering experiences, I'm not going to talk about everything on the top screen, but you will see not everything is flagged with the Snowflake icon, right? And it's a conscious decision. We are not coming into this conversation making a claim that every aspect of your contact center should be modernized with Snowflake. No, right? There are some business processes which are better left within your contact center application itself. For example, contact center operations monitoring. Because the data driving this business process is the data that is formed within the contact center. When you are measuring the operational efficiency of your contact center agent, the data that you need to do is just about what is happening within the perimeters of the contact center. So ideally, the software or the product you already procured should have the capability to give this to you, right? If you don't have it, we can think about how Snowflake can partner. But that is not the case when you talk about superior experiences, right? That is not the case when you start talking about combining your broader enterprise data to drive a contact center experience. And that is where Snowflake can make a true difference. One example I can pick on is the topmost one here, referred to as caller intent prediction. We have some of our customers, right? Potentially some of you on the call or your peers who are looking at data to make predictions about what can a member make a call on, right? What is happening in that person's life, right? What is happening in this health history or health events where there is a potential reason for a call to be made to the contact center. And this is a very powerful proponent. If you think from an agent standpoint, knowing what can be the reason for a member is calling in is a very informative aspect when they deal with that call. Similarly, empathetic call routing is another aspect where you again need to go back into the data in your enterprise data platform, and hence a capability better positioned with something like Snowflake. This is more about understanding or flagging patients who need a high empathy, right? Folks who are maybe undergoing a terminal illness or who is having a life event which needs a high touch point. So, flagging members of that nature and letting the contact center operations know that this is a call coming from a member demanding higher level of empathy, and hence rerouting it into a high touch experience agent, right? Agents who are already trained to deliver that high touch experience. When you start thinking about, I would say, similar advanced experiences at the contact center, it becomes clear that you can only deliver that experience when you tap back into the data product that you have formed in Snowflake, right? Through the rest of the conversation, we will look at a playdown of something of this in action. I'm narrating a quick current state where imagine you have your contact center agent sitting out there, right? And while we talk about experiences, one factor I don't want to discard is the agent burnout, right? It is a reality which most of the enterprises are struggling with. Contact center is potentially that one business function where you are seeing the maximum amount of churn, right, in terms of staffing, because it's a highly demanding business function, right? And it is highly demanding because potentially your agent is being pushed to deliver superior experiences without being provided the capabilities to improve their efficiency, right? When tackling questions coming in from the member, they are potentially scrambling through multitude of documents to find the right answer, right? They are sitting there maybe guessing what could this member have called earlier on, right? They wish they had that intelligence to know what did they talk about in all the prior conversations. And maybe your contact center teams know that somewhere in the enterprise, you may have an EDW, CDW, whatever is your nomenclature, right? Or a data mart, where you have already harnessed all this information about the member. But keep in mind, when you rolled out that job descriptions for the agent, you never asked them to be SQL experts, right? We never asked them to be savvy at writing SQLs and pulling the data. They are people in that job because they understand natural language. So they wish to interact with the data that is harnessed in your data tables, but they have no medium to interact with. That data is so meaningful to make these experiences very, very personalized, but they have no way to get to it. So that's the state at which that burnout is starting to hit the agent, where they're struggling to build that experience. And into that ecosystem is where you can position a platform like Snowflake to sort of up the experience, right? The agent can bring forth. I'm not going to spend much time on the architecture diagram here, but I have four aspects of the overall proposed architecture that we are putting out from an art of possible standpoint. The first one out here, when you look at the member 360, so this is that formation of member data focused specifically on member. The one call out is the powering of next best caller intent with member, right? The second aspect is Cortex analyst, ex- enabling the agent to interact with member 360. And then we are seeing these two agents, right? Two Cortex agents helping them to navigate through information call records and helping them to navigate the information in the knowledge store, right? With that said, take a look at the notebook I'm not going to attempt running the entire thing, but this is a notebook built entirely within Snowflake. In the prior session, Vance showed us that the entire can do with notebooks. So hence, at this point, you are sort of proficient or sort of familiar with what our notebooks can do. The only additive I want to add in is this notebook is built on our latest container runtime. I have even thrown in a GPU compute into it just to show you the power and scale we can bring in right into the notebooks you have. But with that said, there are three things the notebook is doing, right? First, it is harnessing audio calls. And what I have done, I have landed OpenAI's Whisper module within this container notebook. And I'm utilizing that to process the audio files and transcribe them, right? And once the audio files are transcribed, I am positioning what I was referring earlier as a Cortex search agent on top of those transcripts. So this is your first AI agent. And the second one, I am harnessing the knowledge store documents, right? I pulled like 4 documents here. But if you look at what is on the screen, some of you may have struggled. I would say most of us have struggled harnessing PDF documents when you want to do something like that. Where many a times we have to write a PI PDF function or some other complicated function to extract it out, and still the accuracy could be a bit challenging, right? In the true spirit of making things easy, what Snowflake has done is bring on a very focused function which we are referring to as parse document, which can attach to any PDF document that you are putting in and then scan and extract the information out of this document. Murali mentioned about this in the chat history, if you want to go back and check, right? And it can attack the document in two ways. It can attack the document and extract information by preserving the layout intelligence. I was mentioning about this in the earlier session. It can even do an OCR kind of extraction. And on top of that, we have recursive chunkers for those of you who fancy a RAG pipeline. There is an inbuilt recursive chunker which can further amplify this extract. And within, I would say, hardly what, 3 lines, 4 lines of simple SQL, you have a pipeline already built to pull information out of these PDFs. And on top of that data, I am positioning the second Cortex search, right? And finally, towards the end of this, a quick sneak peek. When I talked about that potential caller intent prediction, some of you may have thought of an elaborate pipeline that I'm building on ML. But thanks to what we have as inbuilt ML classification algorithms, or I would say inbuilt ML functions, it becomes very easy to do something like a supervised learning, right? I am only deploying our in-house Snowflake ML classification function against a training data set, which is now going to potentially predict that incoming caller intent based on the history it has observed, right? So things are being made much more simple and easy, right? We are moving out from that realm of complication and keeping things easy with Snowflake. Back on this Streamlit side of the experience, on how this all comes together, let me just start the session. While it loads in, for those of you who are not familiar with Streamlit, this is all within the Snowsight application. I am pulling up this appropriate Streamlit from here, and it's sort of refreshing the warehouse. Let it warm up for a minute. And what you will see, right, as the application loads is an experience that we will navigate between, we will see the contact center agent tackling 3 different calls, right? We'll see the contact center agent moving between 3 different calls and moving across the different data that they want to harness across, right? So think of this like a use case which is played from the perspective of a contact center agent. And as I play through, keep in mind this experience is most profound when attached to your actual contact center solution. And that's the other beauty of it, right? Everything that you see out here in terms of capability is API enabled. And what that simply means, you don't need to invite your contact center agent to open another screen on Streamlit. The ideal implementation of something like this is invoke our AI experiences, right? Or the AI agents we positioned from your contact center application directly, so that the experience for the agent is one and the same, right? They're seeing it where they are used to do their work. Don't invite them to a secondary screen. But for the sake of the demo, I am demonstrating it here. Let's start with the first call, incoming phone number, right? Back on the prediction that ML has generated, the agent is able to understand when he receives this particular call that this particular member had a recent enrollment event, right? And say the member is asking a question regarding wellness program. Contrary to what the agent used to do, where he's scanning multiple documents, this time around it's a simple question, right? The question goes in, Cortex kicks in, it understands the right agent, and back comes the answer. I'll skip few questions and go to the second one, right? The second question is not a question focused on the knowledge store agent. This is a question focused on the data product, right? So we are asking a question. The question that came in was, what is the plan and coverage information of this member? This is an interesting happening on the screen, right? Because many a times I am faced this question on, okay, you are telling you have business facing or application facing capability, right? To go after your structured data with natural language. Basically, the analyst can ask an English question and you will get the right answer. But how do you know it's the right answer is a question that customer keeps asking. And the answer to that is, if the AI is encountering a question it cannot answer, it is engineered such that the hallucinations are sort of limited out, right? And that's what is happening on the screen. It is not attempting to answer a question which it cannot, right? Because the question is sort of molded more than what was asked, right? With the chat history above, AI is acting a bit smart here and trying to reframe this question to something beyond that. But what I asked was only this, right? So AI is suggesting me back, right? Did you, the question I can answer is simply what is the plan and coverage. I cannot say something more than that, right? So it is a restrictive realm of AI, and potentially that is more appropriate when placed into a business function. So let's kick on this question. And maybe I'm rushing a bit, but I hope you're catching the message, right? You can trust the accuracy of the AI in this context because it will never attempt a question it cannot answer, right? And that's more important than answering everything it can. So back comes the answer on what is the plan and product information. Let's take to a second narrative here. Uh, so this time around, the ML model has kicked in. The next best caller intent is already identified. And it is telling that this member has an active grievance, right? We'll start drilling a bit deeper. So agent is asking, okay, I know there is an active grievance, but tell me who is the provider for that, right? AI again takes its round. It is launching the analyst agent and it is identifying it is this particular provider. So think of the interaction, right? As the member is coming in, the agent is trying to understand ahead of time, okay, I know there is an active grievance, who is the provider? There are some follow-up questions like, okay, now tell me everything about the active grievances for this provider. This is a slightly off-route elaboration where what you see here is AI detecting a security violation, which is also one of the use cases a customer gave, right? His point was, when an interaction is happening, we want the AI to be limited to the data related to that member to whom the agent is talking. And that is kicking in here because we ask the AI to find all grievances related to this provider. That means the perimeter of the data is beyond that member and it is stopping there, telling a violation is detected. I will relax that check there and come back and play it again, right? So AI is that one tool set which you can play from different factions of what you want to do, right? That's its beauty. So once we again push that question, it identifies that there are three particular responses, right? The agent can potentially wind up this analysis asking, okay, now knowing this O group has three grievances, how does that compare with the other providers, right? So he is better equipped to know, is that an anomaly that the provider is causing or is that a norm, right? That's the analysis he's doing. And AI is detecting that the average is around 1.02, but this provider has three, right? So it's like three times the average, the number of grievances. So maybe he should flag it to provider ops or things like that, right? So that's the angle. I will move on to one last play down and cut this one short. So here, once again, the next best caller intent is kicking in. Keep in mind that capability can be built only when you tie the data from the broader enterprise platform, the ML functions, whatever we talk. That capability is flagging the agent that this member has an active grievance regarding delay in claim processing. And that possibly is the most likely reason he or she is calling it. So the agent is asking a question, okay, I understand, but did this member make any call recently regarding this problem? So the question agent is asking is now navigating into the prior call records, right? Once again, AI is intelligent enough to navigate to the right agent. It is scanning the call records and back comes the answer. Yes, on April 14th, this member had made a call regarding a prior claim. And at that point, what the agent wants to know is what is the current status of that claim, right? Agreed, they made that call. So they again push a question to the AI saying, okay, tell me what is happening with this claim as of now. Now, this answer sits back in the data side of it, or I would say the structured data side of it, right? So it is launching the analyst agent and bringing the response back. Now, as you see these navigation paths, keep in mind this is about building those experiences powered by AI into any of your business functions. And such experiences can only be built when you tap into your broader data spectrum. Just to round up the narrative, there are a few additives we can do, right? Say, we can even ask the AI to do a next best action, right? So when agent understands that there is a pended claim, he's asking what is the next best action. Cortex kicks in and it tells, okay, you have to trigger this email, right, to claim ops. But it doesn't stop there. It doesn't need to stop. It can even do you get you a quick draft, right? Because a lot of these agents crave for those workflows which can give them a draft action. So AI is now writing that email for you, right, with some standards you have laid out. And let's say, just to wind this up, you can even trigger that action, right? For example, I'm going to wind this up where the AI is now generated the email and the workflow is ending where the email is being triggered to the claim ops, right? I have in fact configured my own ID. So you will see that email popping up, right? Potentially out there. And that is where we will sort of come out of this session. Yeah, so out comes the email, which was potentially created by the AI, addressed to the claim ops team and narrating the member situation. So just to take things back to where we started, what you saw in this particular demo is Snowflake acting as an anchor, right? To improve your contact center operations or modernize it by ensuring that you have the right data gamut supporting it, right? The knowledge stores, the interaction data sets, and then your broader structured data sets, and then layering the right fit AI agents on top of it, right? If you're interested to know more, please do reach out. Would be happy to talk more in detail.